book lovers, it's Jenny at Julia Baby Jen, and today I'm going to be talking about the Shades of Magic Trilogy. Alright, so settle in, this could be a long one. I'm going to start this video with a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read these books yet, you can watch for a little while, and I will let you know when I start on the spoilers, because that's just going to happen. So we've got the Shades of Magic series by VE Schwab, A Darker Shade of Magic, A Gathering of Shadows, and A Conjuring of Light. And I read all three of these. I pretty much binge read these in April, and I adored them. I'm kind of glad that I waited until all the books were out till I read this series, because I think it would drive me crazy having to wait for this last book. So it was really nice that I could read the whole series at once, and I think I need to start doing more and more of that. I think I need to stop reading series as they come out and wait till they're all out and just read them. My cat's made a goofball. But yeah, I think I enjoy that way more, especially if it's a series I really love. There's some series I could break it apart, but yeah, this series is one of my favorite series I've ever read. It's one of the best fantasies I've ever read, with the best writing and some of the best characters, the best plot, just interesting stories. So I will try not to rate too hard, but there really isn't a lot of complaint I have about any of these books. They are just so my type of reads. I love them. So I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis, a little bit of Darker Shade of Magic. I can't really give you a synopsis of the other two until we get to the spoiler section. But for Darker Shade of Magic, basically, this story, we are following Kel is our main character. And there's basically in this story 4 Londons. And they're different dimensions of each other, and they're all a little different. And the borders have been sealed, and you can only certain people can travel between the worlds using a type of magic. These people are called travelers, and they are born with this ability of magic, and they will have eyes of different color, and that's how you know that they are travelers. And over the years, they become fewer and fewer, and now that's all that left is 2. Kel, who lives in Red London, and Holland, who lives in White London. And so Kel travels between the worlds. Basically, the kings and queens of each London communicate through each other, and the travelers have to transfer the messages from king to king, and that's really all they're supposed to do. But Kel takes it upon himself to has this black market thing going where he's trading artifacts and things from different Londons to collectors and things like that. He's not really sure why he does it. I think it's just because he doesn't need the money and he has every need taken care of. I think it's just because he kind of can. And I think he's just one of those people that really likes to push the envelope and doesn't like to obey authority that much. And that's, I think, a lot of it. So the different Londons we have in here, we have Red London, which where Kel is from, and that is the most healthy London. The river is actually red, and that's why they call it Red London. There's so much magic in this city, and it's a really wonderful city overall. It's just a really good city to live in. Then we have White London, where Holland lives, and that city has lost almost all of its magic, and it has kind of a whitish gray look to it, and that's why Kel calls it White London. And the people there are very corrupt, and they will do anything for a scrap of magic. So they don't have kings and queens lasting very long in power there. They're always being overthrown, and there's a lot of unrest and violence, and it's just not a great London to be at. Then we have Grey London, which has no magic left at all in it, and that's why it's called Grey London. It's kind of similar to basically our own London now. I should say that this takes place kind of like in the late 1800s, kind of a feel to it. So it's very much like the London would have been then. And that's where Lila Bard, one of our other main characters, is from. And she's a thief. And then we have Black London. Black London has been sealed off, and no one can get in or out of there. Black London, basically the magic took over and became a plague and killed everything. And that's why they sealed all the Londons separate. They used to be able to travel back and forth between them, but after that, everything was sealed shut. And that's why White London has hardly any magic left, because they're the closest to Black London. Red London is in the middle, and then there's Grey London that has nothing. So that's kind of the basics of the different Londons. So Kel is traveling back and forth and transferring these artifacts, and he gets in trouble when he comes across this evil coin from Black London, and it starts this magic plague all over again. And he's basically a pawn and to travel and being set up, and people are trying to kill him, and yeah, it kind of goes from there. So that's the basic setup of the darker shade of magic, or a darker shade of magic, excuse me. And then it moves to the other two, which the story gets even more in depth. Now, my only complaint on A Darker Shade of Magic was I wanted more world building. We got some, but I felt like I wanted to know way more. Well, that was coming later. A Gathering of Shadows and a Conjugative Light, you get tons of world building. So, I feel like, in a way, it was probably better that we didn't get as much in here because I think it would have bogged down the story. I felt like this story moved really fast, A Darker Shade of Magic, and it was very, very dark. I think it was, I don't know, it was about as dark as A Conjuring of Light, I think. It was very gruesome and dark. So I love that. I love dark fantasy. But this is very dark story. There's a lot happening. A lot of it's political in a lot of these books, but there is some actual, obviously, fights and things like that going on. The magic system in this series is really awesome. I love the magic system in here. The basic setup of the worlds is really interesting. And I like that there's no clear-cut answer and how to solve the problems because the main problem of this series is really the problem between, even though we have this evil artifact that starts this whole process, the whole thing wouldn't have happened at all if it wasn't for the animosity between White London and Red London. And that's the main center of conflict for the entire series. We have this one London that is trying its best to hold on to whatever magic it can get. And then you have Red London, who has all this wonderful magic. And the reason they have all this wonderful magic is because they sealed themselves off from White London and Black London and all the other Londons. White London did not make that choice to seal everything off. Red London did. And Red London is the one who's benefit from it because they have all the magic and White London has none. And so you have that conflict that's constantly going between the two cities. And you start to wonder, well, why shouldn't White London have more magic? I mean, why is Red London more important than White London? So there's a really good conflict there between the whole series, and I really liked that. It's kind of an age-old conflict between countries and worlds. So yeah, I really liked that. The other thing that stands out in this series is the characters. I think the characters really, really stand out in here, and you fall in love with them, even the evil ones, and follow them all the way through. Cal was actually not my favorite character in the beginning. He grew on me quite a bit by the end of the book, or the end of the series. But actually, Lila is my favorite character in here. I love Lila, and she's your basic anti-hero, and you are rooting for her the whole way, even though, you know, she does some really harsh things. But she has such a heart, but she just has had it broken so many times that she is so damaged. And I just really, really love Lila. Plus, the comedy, especially between her and Cal, was really great. And then in the second book, we get a new character called Alucard, who is a captain of a ship, and he is amazing. I love him, and he and Lila have this wonderful friendship, this banter, and it's so wonderful. Oh, I love him too. Then we have the Prince of Red London, Rise, who starts out as basically a spoiled brat, but it completely a huge character story arc through the series, and I just love that. And then basically, I guess I forgot to mention that that Cal is the other son of Red London. He was taken from his family when he was 5. He has no memory before that, and the king and queen have raised him as their own child, even though he really is. He's also their employee as well. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. And he and Rise are like brothers. They're very, very close. But Rise is the true prince, and he is looked on upon that. And Cal is kind of the throwaway prince, even though his what he can do is very important. In the end, the king and queen love Rise way more than they love Cal. So that's an interesting family dynamic in this series as well. And then, I guess, as I talked about, the world building, the characters, The writing is the next best thing of this series, or maybe the best thing, I don't know, but the way it's written is fantastic. The chapters are fairly short. It moves pretty quickly, but they're descriptive enough writing where it's not overly descriptive. Where the story and the plot keeps moving, but you get a lot. You can see the whole thing in your head. It's so wonderfully written, and it's just beautiful writing. So yeah. So that's kind of my spoiler-free gushing on this series, and now I'm going to head to the spoiler section of this video. So I know this is already getting really long, but if you haven't read these books and don't want to be spoiled, now would be the time to stop watching because I'm going to be talking about spoilers. Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk about each book individually. A Darker Shade of Magic was my least favorite of the series, which I think is the same for a lot of people. And my main reason I liked it a little bit less was I wanted more world building because I'm really big on world building in fantasy. But what we got, I thought, was very well done, very well fleshed out, and I feel like we understood the basics of the Londons. I just wanted more of it. But I do think that if there had been more added, it might have bogged down the story. This is already a 400-page book, and there's a lot that happens in here. When Cal was doing the whole black market thing at the beginning, I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to bite him in the butt, and I was so right. I think it's really interesting why he was doing it, and I think it was, that thrill and adventure factor. I think he and Lila have a lot in common on that, and I think he was just trying to have a little fun. I think that he was very sheltered and the king and queen are very strict, and he has a specific set of things he had to do, and that was it. And he had all this power and all this magic, and I felt like he was almost wasted with it. So I think that's kind of why he was doing that. And this book, I loved Lila from the get-go. I loved her from the very beginning. Oh my gosh. Kel was kind of I didn't dislike him, but I didn't really love him. Rye, I didn't like hardly at all. The King and Queen, I didn't like. The White London, what was it? Athos and Astrid. Boy, those two were evil. Oh my gosh. So I feel like in this one, it really kind of set it up. We were looking at White London through Kel's eyes more than we're through Holland. And so in this one, everybody thinks, oh, White London's so bad and terrible. Grey London just kind of there. And Red London is wonderful. And of course, Black London's bad too. I don't really feel a lot of that changed in A Gathering of Shadows. This book, for me, started out a little slower. But once the game started, I was all in. And the games, I think, were what made this book wonderful. And where all the plot lines really started to twist. I love Lila's point of views throughout the entire book. She was what kept me reading. Kel's, I was just kind of like, not that interested. And I was interested in what was going on with Holland as well. But I feel like I really feel like in this one, this was Lila and Alucard's kind of story through most of it, and I loved both of them. They were really fun to learn about. I did not guess that, an Antari, that's what it is. I did not guess that Lila was an Antari at all through this. I knew she had a lot of power. It just didn't occur to me that that's what she was. I thought she was something completely different. But Conjugative Light was my favorite book of the trilogy. I feel like this one was all of it. I mean, this is great. I think it really completed each story arc for the characters really well. We learned so much about the King and Queen, which I really appreciated, getting a lot more insight in them, because until this book, I just thought they were really terrible people. And then we have Rise, who completely changed. Oh my gosh, I loved him in this book. He had gone through so much at the end of A Dark Shade of Magic and A Gathering of Shadows, and this is where he finally mans up and is the true king he needs to be, and I loved that. Of course, Lila's wonderful. I really love the ending to this. I think the ending was so well done because we have the three Antari who have been fighting for power throughout the series. Lila, Kel, and Holland. Even though Lila and Kel work together a lot, and a lot of times, especially in the second book, they are fighting against each other too, and they're all battling for this power. They have to all use each other's power to defeat this evil king thing. I don't know what you want to call it, but this evil spirit or whatever it is. And I really love that. And I feel like the ending was perfect. It couldn't have been a better ending. Um, I wasn't too surprised that Kel and Lila got together in this series. I didn't really feel it until this book, I think. I kind of thought for a while it might be her and Alucard, but Alucard and Rye's romance was really interesting. I really loved theirs too. Alucard in general, I just loved his whole story arc. Another thing I really love about this series are the scenes at sea. So in Gathering of Shadows, we have Lila and Alucard on a ship through a good portion of the book, and then this one they have to go on a ship to this black market in the middle of the ocean. That is really, really awesome. I just really thought that was cool. So I don't know, I'm just gushing. I just love these books so much. I don't think there's a lot I would say against them. I feel like the first one was very dark. The second one wasn't as dark, but this one went back to the darkness factor, and I really liked the dark fantasy. I really liked the magic system in this. I loved the characters. I love the writing. I love the basic plot line, and I feel like there's a lot left in this world to explore. So I don't know if there's going to ever be a spin-off series about this, but um, we still have all the Londons cut off from each other, and um, we have White London with the same problems it had at the beginning of the series. And maybe that's realistic, but I wondered if something, when they started to take over White London started to get better, I kind of thought that that was fitting in a way because that's how the world works. Things go in cycles. No one area of the world has power forever or all of the money forever. Like everybody has their day in the sun, and then there's some who never have a day in the sun. Africa's one that comes to mind, although Egypt was really high in its power a long time ago. But like now, you just look at history and how the changes and branches of power have changed throughout the centuries, and that's normal. Things go in cycles. So I wonder, that kind of happened a little too fast though. Normally it doesn't happen quite as fast as that, but I'd be interested to see a book in the future about White London. I think that would be really fascinating to have another series with that. So overall, 5-star read. I loved all of these books. They were wonderful binge reads, wonderful magic, wonderful fantasy with kind of a really cool multi-dimension kind of a element to it, and great characters. So yeah, these were awesome. Leave me comments below if you've read these and what your thoughts were, and just chat with me about these books in the comments. I will talk to everyone later. Hope you have a good day. Bye.